Good evening. I'm Nancy Umanoff, Executive Director of the Mark Morris Dance Group. Thank you for joining us tonight. Today, we launched our 40th anniversary season, a digital one. Not at all how we imagined celebrating this great milestone, but I'm excited to share our plans with you. There'll be lots of dances to see, both old and new, video dances and live stream performances from Brooklyn. There'll be talks with Mark and the dancers, artistic collaborators, and guest artists. There'll be music to hear and lots of interactive classes and workshops. I hope you'll join us many times throughout the season. Let's take a sneak peek now at the lineup. I want to thank our official sponsor, Bloomberg Philanthropies, and the many institutions and individuals that will make our 40th anniversary season possible. And now for tonight's program, Person, Place, Thing with Randy Cohen and his guest, Mark Morris. Randy and Mark will be taking questions at the end of the program, so I encourage you to use the Q&A function in the toolbar if you're watching on Zoom. And if you're joining us on YouTube, we have someone monitoring that chat and they'll feed us those questions. So now please join me in welcoming Randy Cohen and Mark Morris.
Hey, it's us. Hi, Mark.
Hello, I was just performing an exorcism because that was the craziest thing I've ever been through. It was fabulous and surreal, but we got a bunch of information across all at the same time. Hello.
Hello. So who's your person, Mark? Who is your person?
It's so tempting to give you a different one every time you ask me that, but my person is the wonderful, wonderful, late American, brilliant composer named Lou Harrison. Lou Harrison, great composer.
And why Lou Harrison, though? The world abounds in great composers. Why did you choose him?
The world abounds, I guess. Yeah, there are lots of composers. Let's just say that, well, first of all, I'm wearing this. I don't usually wear a bolo, but this was given to me by a good friend of Lou's after he died a while ago.
2003, I think, yes.
See, I knew you have all that stuff. I just do decades and you do specifics. Anyway, I heard Lou's music on a recording from the Louisville Symphony when they used to make experimental recordings of new fabulous music. And it was a piece of his called called Eight Strict Songs. It was called Strict Songs. It was written for 8 baritone vocalists and an orchestra, a retuned orchestra. And it was an amazing piece based on Native American, I think specifically Hopi poetry and traditions. And he had, boy, his story is so long. I was commissioned to do a piece for the Seattle men's chorus, gay men's chorus. And I chose that piece of music. And he agreed, he lived in California, in Aptos, California. He agreed to come up because he was a queer. And he came up to the rehearsals. He approved, instead of 8 baritone singers, it was approved to be performed by 120 men, gay men, singing this incredible piece.
How did they check? How did they confirm?
Called him on the phone. I think they called him on the phone. And so he came up and brought some of his instruments and helped tune it. And he came up with his longtime partner, boyfriend, husband, whatever, Bill Colvig, with whom he built his own instruments, his own American gamelan instruments. So that's when I met him, who knows, mid-80s. So I did my first piece. I've done, 7, 8 pieces to his music by now. We became very close friends. One of his last big pieces was a commission that I asked him to write. And it turned into a big piece of music and a big dance that I called Rhymes with Silver, because of his middle name, Silver,
Right.
which was his mother's middle name. And, you know, same as orange, not much rhymes with
Right.
it.
Famously
So,
unrhymable.
yeah,
Um,
so, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, one of the, I mean, infinitely interesting things about him is he was, I think, one of the first out composers in that academic music world and was long affiliated with the Portland Gay Men's Chorus, right?
Yeah. And also that's what got him into, what do I say, deep water in his life, disapproved of by a lot of people, Charles Ives, you know, specifically. But he was queer and he was happy about it. He was a radical fairy, really, to use a dated term that still applies. And a lot of his work was queer based. He was also an Esperantist and a
Right.
poet
The last
and an
holdout for Esperanto.
instrumentalist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and an expert in early on in this sort of world music kind of game that is a term that Henry Cowell invented, who was one of Lou's teachers. But Lou was at the Cornish School with John Cage and Merce Cunningham. He studied classical Korean music. He was in Java and Bali and studied very deeply gamelan music and traditional music of Indonesia. And I loved him. And he and my mother were born the same year. In fact, in 1917. In fact, he was in Seattle and came to my mama's 80th birthday party. The two of them sat there like old people and had the best time ever.
Well, I mean, you've touched on so much that's so interesting about him, but let's talk a little about the Ives thing. So in the 40s, if correct me if I have this wrong. So Lou Harrison's in New York, and he's working as a music critic, and as much as
Right, for the
anybody
Herald,
else,
yeah.
he put Ives on the map.
Well, Ives, yeah, it's true. Everyone just thought Ives was a kook. He was. And you know, he'd been writing, you know, everybody knows his story of the insurance guy, and he was writing secret music that just looked like crazy stuff, which it was. And so, you know, his papers were a mess. Lou loved what he knew about him and his music. And Lou ended up, I think, being responsible for a lot of his music being published and edited and published. So, you know, and Ives has become this amazing force. And Lou Harrison, I'm happy to say I'm part of it, has become a big sort of rediscovery of the maverick, you know, outcast, whatever, you know, different kind of composer. But now that's regular. So,
Yeah,
you know, that's a wonderful battle to have won for a little bit.
And Ives recognized that Lou was responsible for his success and that he split the Pulitzer Prize money with him.
I forgot that. I read every book on Lou and I knew him, but I forgot that. That's fantastic.
I mean, say it with money. There's no greater declaration of recognition
Exactly.
of some kind. It's America after all. So, but I didn't know that they had a big falling out.
Let's just say Ives disapproved of Lou's what's called a lifestyle, whatever the hell that means. And I mean, they patched it up, I guess. I'm not sure, but you know.
Well, I hope so. One of the things I wanted to ask you about Lou was that when he was a young student at UCLA, he was in the dance department. Do you think it's his sophistication about both dance and music that is something that you guys had in common and that drew you to one another?
Well, yes, because neither of us knew it any other way. But absolutely, he was super dance sensitive. When I asked him to write a piece of music for me, I mean, first of all, I went there and he said yes, because I used to visit him all the time. And he said, something's on your mind. What is it? You seem like crazy or nervous. I said, well, he says, you want me to write a piece for you? I said, well, yes, of course. What do you think? Of course I do. And he really said something like, how long is it? What's the instrumentation? Is it going to tour? Is there vocals? What's the text? You know, the tour part was, I said, it can be 10 harps and a boys choir and trombones if you want. And he said, no, it has to tour. And he interviewed me. And there was a pause, and at the end, he said, I can't do a pause because I have to talk fast, but you know, with a pretend pause, he took a break, and then he said, I will, well, first of all, he asked if I would choreograph it, and then he write the music. And I said, I could, but I never do. He said, okay, I'll write you a piece. Don't ask me about it again. And then 2 weeks later, I got the first bushel of music that he couldn't stop writing. It ended up being a piece of music that's about 40 minutes long. It was an amazing experience.
So you start with the music generally in
Yes,
your work.
always.
So you had to describe a dance that didn't exist so that he could write a piece of music that didn't exist.
No, he wanted me to make up a dance with no music, and then he would watch it and make the music fit. Like Louis Horst did sometimes, the Martha Graham approach, Gene Erdman, and, some very early modern dance people. Music was supposed to be independent from dancing and vice versa. And I've never thought that. So he said, well, sure, of course, I'll do this and whatever, see how it turns out.
And it turned out well, I think. You were
Turned out
pleased
great.
with what he did, yeah?
I had also asked him specifically to write a big, fancy, beautiful cello part for Mr. Yo-Yo Ma, the acclaimed and excellent cellist. And so, he sent music to Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo would send it back saying, yes, it's playable, ellipsis. And, it was like that. And I sent some music back to him because it didn't seem complete, because he would do that. Every composer says that he or she will make adjustments. Not many of them are really want to. Of course, I don't either. So, but he sent it back in 2 weeks, fixed.
So
great.
he knew
Yeah.
So you had him write a solo line specifically for Yo-Yo Ma. And is that akin to, I mean, you must have choreographed for some particular dancers.
Oh yeah, and that was just part of the piece. It's their solo cello bits, their kits. To look up Henry Cowell's idea of music kits is amazing, and that's what Lou did. He sent me music that I could combine kind of however I wanted. So it's for piano, violin, viola, cello, percussion, and cello. Did I say those right? Yeah, that seems right. But it's a piece. You can buy a recording that's kind of sluggish, that's not exactly my tempi, but it exists. The piece is called Rhymes with Silver.
Oh, and when you say he had to adjust for Yo-Yo, or Yo-Yo had to say whether or not it was playable, that's not so odd, because am I not right? Lou Harrison was really interested in microtones and really interested in unconventional tuning. So it must have been quite
Absolutely
challenging for the instrumentalist.
Yeah. Yeah. He wrote an incredibly gorgeous and frequently played piano concerto as sort of a half-assed commission by the sorry but not playing anymore Keith Jarrett. And he was in wherever he was, and Lou had a specifically tuned an ancient tuning piano, and Mr. Jarrett did the same thing. And so it was done long distance, and somehow it's one of his great pieces that's played quite frequently.
One of the things I think is also unusual about his life is that he had an awful lot of odd jobs before he became a big shot Lou Harrison. He was an animal nurse. He was a florist. He was a record salesman, and he learned how to fight forest fires. I don't think you could say any of those things about any other composer.
Oh, come on. Have you ever heard of Juilliard? That's part of the curriculum. No, it's true. It's unusual. He did a lot of stuff, and he just got bummed out in New York and with the, post 12 tone music, and had what people used to refer to as a nervous breakdown, and moved back to California and looked west. Is that west? Yeah. Looked west to the music of Pacifica, as he would call it. He referred to Europe as Northwest Asia.
Well, and in Asia, in particular, the music of Indonesia, yes?
Well, yes, that's what he ended up really working on very strongly. He built his own gamelan orchestras that could be played in either Pelog or Slendro, the two principal tunings of a lot of Indonesian music. And it was American music, but it was in these fabulous tunings. And he very often used non-fixed pitch instruments, trombone, horn, suling, wooden flute, and the human voice. So it's not based on our rigid, thank you, Mr. Bach, well-tempered tuning.
Right. He liked that gamelan music. And as you were saying, it was William Colvig helped him build these things.
Yeah.
Again, there are not a lot of composers, I think, that are building their own instruments. And also, I thought Harrison had this knowledge of life that you associate, or at least I associate, all those quirky jobs with, well, that's something writers do. They're hopping freight trains,
right.
They're working in steel mills. But he has a kind of breadth of experience. And can we hear that in his music?
Well, always. But I do want to say the hobo crazy built his own instruments composer Harry Partch,
Yes.
who was a close friend of Lou's, as was Conlon Nancarrow and John Cage and Henry Cowan, all of them, most of them Western, most of them queer.
Oh, so there's this kind of tradition of queer odd job West Coast composers who like micro tunings.
Yes.
It could be a dating site.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's where I make all my dates. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Ah, I see. But before we end this segment, should we say a little about how he died? Because I think it's sad and funny and ironic and.
Okay. Well, first of all, before I forget saying this, there's some musical bits tonight, and all of the music is by Lou Harrison from
Yes.
different periods and for different reasons, and we'll introduce those individually. Well, let's see. Here's what happened. Lou didn't fly. I mean, maybe emotionally, but he didn't like to go on planes. And you know, he was getting old. He was like 85-ish, I think, and he couldn't wear shoes anymore, so he wore galoshes with no shoes under them. And you know, he was so wonderful and so fun and kind and fabulous. And so he was on his way to a festival celebrating his music, and he went by Amtrak. And I think I don't know, I think they went to Denny's or something.
It was at Denny's.
Yeah, and he,
in
you
Lafayette, Indiana.
Okay. He kicked the proverbial bucket, and you know, a tiny bit more of that is just a few days before he died, I was working on a solo called Serenade, and it was written for guitar and percussion. And I was working on it, and there's percussion in it, and the one piece that had no percussion sounded like Scarlatti's Spanish music to me. So I thought maybe I should play the castanets gorgeously along with this music. And I was about, you know how it goes, I was about to call him or write him a letter to ask. And then I found out that he had died. So, you know, after I stopped crying, I decided he would have wanted me to play the castanets for this. He would have rolled his eyes and said, "You're going to do it anyway." So that's a tribute to him.
Play the castanets.
And they're noisy, you know.
They are. Okay. So let's hear a piece of Lou Harrison's that Colin Fowler will play and will introduce.
Great. Let's go.
Hello, all. I'm going to play a little interlude of some Lou Harrison music. This is from a piece called Piano Trio, which Lou wrote in 1990. Mark actually choreographed this piece in 1995, and he called the piece Pacific. Mark choreographed the third and fourth movements. The third movement of the piece is actually for a solo version of all the instruments, piano, violin, and cello. So this is movement 3B, which is the piano solo of the trio, and this is an excerpt. And now back to Randy and Mark.
Well, thank you, Colin, music director of the Mark Morris Dance Group. Also, I choreographed that piece originally on the San Francisco Ballet, the fabulous San Francisco Ballet, but lately my company has been doing it, so it goes both ways somehow.
It's a great piece.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So, Mark, where's your place?
Oh, I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to tell you where it is. I'm ornamented differently because my place is a village in Karnataka in South India called Nritagram, which is the most amazing place maybe I've ever been. And it's very near, it's just a few clicks away from Bangalore, the Silicon Valley of southern India. It's crazy there. And it's near a little village named Hesaragata. And it's basically a communal situation. It's just about entirely female, and it is dedicated to classical Indian dance, music, philosophy, food, literature, and culture. And it's inhabited by an incredible group of women who've been there for 20 plus years. I go there every 2 years, usually around the turn of the year, and spend a few days with them where I'm thrilled and delighted to converse, watch rehearsal, cook and dine with all of the women. And it's just an astonishing place. They perform all over the world. They specifically dance a classical Indian style called Odissi from the state of Orissa. And they're brilliant, contemporary, fabulously well-versed, urbane, feminist, I would say they may not, wonderful, wonderful artists who share in a way that you don't find very often. They've performed a lot all over the world, various festivals. They've been in New York many times, all over the States, and very highly regarded. And I can't tell you how much it means to me to know them and to watch them.
Mark, why are they all women? Was that by design, or did it just evolve that way?
Well, there's an occasional man, but yeah, I think it evolved that way. I don't think it was on purpose, no men allowed. Their first, the founding guru was a man, and they had men teachers. There's occasionally a man dancer, and there's some men who work on the staff. But and also a lot of classical dance forms in India have become predominantly women dancers. And it used to be, a lot of the women are replacing who used to be the little boys who danced at the temple or in the court. And, a lot of these dances have been reconstructed from writings and famously from statuary. And, the form that everybody knows most about is called Bharatanatyam. And it's wonderful, and it's the most familiar. And Odissi is different. They're related to people who aren't used to watching it so much. So the super classical form would be a solo all the time. And the choreographer, the guru in charge of the dancing is named Shurupa Sen. And she's a very, very great dancer and a very great choreographer. But she's done the radical thing of combining people. Instead of you tell the story by yourself and you play all the characters, she's incorporated other people. And in fact, she's worked with some Sri Lankan dancers in a very, very different style, collaborating. So what seems to us, if we don't know a lot about classical Indian arts, seems perfectly regular. In India, it's seen as quite radical. And it is, and that's one reason it's so exciting, because, like in the States, I'm stereotyping this, but, girls take dancing lessons until they don't. You used to learn the piano, so you were refined enough to get a boyfriend at the cotillion. That's still true in India. Young girls are often trained as dancers, and then they stop when they get a marriage, arranged or not. And the boys are drummers. So, and everybody, to me, it seems like everybody I meet in India, and not just professionals, has a fabulous voice and sense of rhythm and an incredible memory for music. And I guess a lot of people do, but to me, it was so impenetrable for so long. And it took me about, 20 years to really be able to hear the music and get the dancing in a way that was more satisfying than what I was frustrated with before.
So the notion that music or dance or that music is a universal language, that's just nonsense, isn't it? It takes
Correct.
work, and it's a foreign language, the dance she does, and you have to study it if you're going to enjoy it. Well, if
Right.
you understand it, let's say.
Or you don't have to understand it to enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But that's somebody who goes to like the opera for the first time. It's like, what? Why are they yelling? It's like, that's what and the famous stories that go both ways between India and Western music. It's like, oh, you started the piece already? Oh, wait, I thought you were tuning up. Ravi
Yeah.
Shankar said that long ago, but it's also true the other way. It's like, oh, you mean Indian classical music, not European classical music, because they don't meet really. So
Right.
to be able to get that is it's a challenge, and it's a wonderful pleasure.
And she's not then rigidly recreating museum pieces. She's quite open to new and evolving forms in dance.
Well, yes, but it's, there's a very, very famous ancient Sanskrit text that's a guideline for all of the arts of India. It's called the Natya Shastra. And it's what you study when you study Sanskrit or Indian music or dance. And I'm abridging all of this more than you can imagine. But everyone associated with it it's part of the training, and it's part of like knowing the deep, deep history of the arts in India. But so it's not like sloppy postmodernism where you just add some antique elements and that makes everything up to date and relevant. And I'm not opposed to good postmodernism, in my opinion. So it's not East meets West, which to me very often produces the worst of both possible worlds. Pache people who disagree with me. But and everyone, I don't know what to say. It's radical in that it is so deeply traditionally put together. It's like, I don't know what else to say about that. It's reverent without being paralyzed.
Oh, that's very good. I like that. I'm gonna
as my screen freezes.
Yeah. But when you go there, you're not going there just as a passive spectator to lie back and enjoy. I think you're bringing back ideas that then will affect your own work when you get home.
I was going to say, no, I'm going as a passive aggressive spectator, but
that's kind
Airbnb. Which I'm sure they would agree with. Yeah. But the thing is, it was founded, 20 plus years ago by this fabulous woman, Pratima Gauri Bedi, who I met the first time I went there. It hadn't been open very long. I got a grant to go with a friend to India as like a research thing. And I was meeting lots of people. I ended up meeting Pratima, and she was like the hippest, fabulousest woman I'd met. And I was sure I'd met her at some groovy Soho party or something in the 80s. She'd never been to the States. She was just so fabulous and bluffing a little bit, but she had incredible self-confidence. She had been a model, a sometime actress. She was married to a famous Bollywood star. And she didn't start dancing until in her 20s, which is already just like Western. Starting ballet when you're 6, if you're a girl, is normal, or the violin or whatever. And she saw a concert by who became their guru, Kalacharan, and she devoted herself to this man and was his, I don't know, what's the word? I hate mentee, protege, and learned to dance beautifully. And she founded this place in the middle of nowhere with her connections from the movie and fashion industries and the government. She was very persuasive and very charming. And so horribly, 2 years later, that's a bad way to start a sentence. 2 years later, I was going for my second trip and planned to go there. And a gentleman writing for the Hindu newspaper in India came to interview me because I was going there and I was kind of famous-ish. And he brought me the obituary in the New York Times that she had been killed in a landslide, a mudslide in the Himalayas, where she'd gone, even more sadly, to pay respects to her son, who had committed suicide shortly before that. So she went there on a pilgrimage and was killed. So I met her once. I felt like I'd known her for years. And this place had just started. So I met most of the people who are now still there. Lynn Fernandez, who runs the place, Sharupa, and one of their great ex-dancers, Vijayini Satpathy, who's on her own now doing work. But that was my beginnings of going to Nritagram. I felt at home and wonderful, and I still do.
Here's something that Sharupa said. Tell me what you think of this. The idea is that you submit yourself to a universal something. Is this?
Hey, Sharupa, could you clarify that a little bit?
Well, what do you make of that?
She means that, as I mean, I'm a full-on born-again atheist. And at Nritagram, that's another thing that's controversial. One woman who works there grew up in a Christian household, and the others aren't particularly observant. But the thing is, the daily sort of what I think of as superstition, just knock, a black cat, walk under a ladder, knock on wood kind of thing, which is a kind of religion, a kind of superstition. That's everywhere in India. The offerings at every little idol, the alms to poor people. I think it's an amazing way to live. And so they're deeply concerned and deeply, I would even say, spiritual, but not dogmatic, and observant through history and knowledge and education, why India is the many, many, many ways that it is, the 10,000 bubbles and the, virgins, and everything is in multiples. It's overwhelming. The universe inside the mouth of Krishna. So, and, I know that stuff because I love it. And the work is almost always based on sacred texts. It's not like groovy modern stuff. It's romance, between various gods, so deities and fights and heartbreak, but it's always from the point of view of the text, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata.
Is the work in some ways a search for transcendence, a seeking of transcendence?
Yes.
Yeah. And
yeah,
would you say that about your work too, then?
Yes.
Boy, that is unmodulated. A definite yes. But if okay, so I am a lifelong atheist, but I love gospel music. So my thesis is that you can love gospel music without believing in any of the things that gospel is advocating. This
right.
song's about Jesus. Is that true about the work we're talking about? Can you love it and really involve yourself with it and reject that spirituality?
I reject it in me. I don't reject it in other people. If following whatever, religious track you're on makes things work for you and gives you solace and makes you kinder and whatever, then hooray. I disagree with that. Basically, most religions agree with don't kill anybody. And I agree with that.
You're so tolerant with this not killing anybody. Because
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think maybe we should hear Colin Feller play us some more Lou Harrison, don't you?
Hey, Colin, play us out for a second here.
Okay, I shall. This is an excerpt of a piece which was discussed earlier in the evening called Rhymes with Silver, which was a piece that Mark commissioned from Lou Harrison that he started composing in 1995, and the dance premiered in 1997. It's scored for piano, violin, viola, cello, and percussion. And this is one of the 6 small dances in the middle of the piece. This is the jig and musette, and this will be the jig. And back to Randy and Mark.
Thank you, Colin. One of the things I really like about that, and Lou Harrison in general is I don't think if you had just heard those 2 pieces and didn't know who wrote them, you would think the same person wrote them.
I'm not sure Lou would think the same person wrote them. Also, I want to offer my deepest apologies to every violist I ever met, because I think I forgot to mention the name of your fabulous instrument.
Oh, all right. Well, because I think we're going to get angry letters from viola players.
I know. I probably already have.
I wouldn't want to be in your shoes, man.
Yeah. Right.
So, Mark, what's your thing?
My thing? Thank you thing. Yeah, right. Okay. My thing is brace yourselves. You either use this every day or you've never heard of it. It is called the Instant Pot.
Wow.
Or eclipse of the Instant Pot. And you know, it's big, but it's not what it's a little R2D2 looking.
It is, yeah.
It's magic. I want to tell you that. I was always, like most intelligent people are, scared to death by a stovetop pressure cooker from the times it never blew up, but you always thought it was going to, and then you have oatmeal on the ceiling or whatever. That never happened to me. But again, tying this into Nritagram, everywhere I've had home cooking in India, a pressure cooker is the featured thing of the, you know, everybody uses them all the time if you cook with pulses and lentils, if you're vegetarian, if you make rice, or you can make your own yogurt, you can do slow cooking, instant. It's not actually instant, it still has to heat up, but it is so amazing. It's great for people with children, and it's great for people without children. So, you know, you can do like a 1-pot chicken and dumplings, or a 1-pot kalua pork wrapped in a banana leaf, or 1-pot khichdi, you know, mixes of things. It is a shock. Risotto with dried mushrooms. You don't even have to reconstitute them first. You can make black bean soup from dry beans. It is a miracle. You can poach 18, you can soft boil 18 eggs at the same time. So anyway, get one. Everybody get one.
You were enthusiastic when you speak about Indian music, when you speak about Lou Harrison, but not half as enthusiastic as when you speak about the Instant Pot.
Well, I think that's because everybody knows about it but you. And I'm relieved. I'm over some of the anxiety I had at the start of this, where there was some crazy stuff going on. Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's like that where you don't want to buy another, you know, like egg poacher or a bagel slicer, like the most useless things in the world. And people don't want to have more junk, especially if you're in New York, but you can use it for so many things. You know, if I use it once a week, it's worth it, but I use it much more than that. And I live alone. And so I cook in volume, and I also just, you know, make fabulous food, and everybody can do it. It's really, you can't mess it up. Wow. It's really hard to mess up, and it's worth getting. You know, there's a woman, I'm sorry, but I can't think of her name, who became known by translating Indian pressure cooker recipes and Indian cuisine into Instant Pot recipes. And she's known internationally as the butter chicken lady. And I'm sorry, I don't have her name, but somebody will throw that in because everyone's patrolling that. And also the fabulous Melissa Clark of the New York Times, who was a real skeptic. And now she's been, you know, bowled over. And the Instant Pot it's just amazing. You know, it's the greatest thing since fire.
I've never heard so much enthusiasm for a kitchen device, except, I mean, no one feels that way about their waffle iron, maybe about their cast iron pan, maybe about their Cuisinarts 30 years ago. People were kind of wacky about that, but that faded. But the passion of the Instant Pot user is really a marvel to behold.
And there's a thing called pot in pot, or as I like to call it, Instant Pot, pot in pot, which sounds unbelievably complicated. That just means you can cook a veg or a meat, and inside the same pot, put a bowl of rice and cook that, or a sauce. It's amazing. And you can make incredibly rich bone broth, as people now call stock, with, you know, whatever garbage you have, and it's an amazing thing in like no time. If you want to cook something for 6 hours, you can, but you can also do it in 40 minutes.
So it can be fast. You can make this stuff fast that
it is fast, yeah.
And were you saying that it began as the preferred device of vegetarians? Because if you're doing dried beans, they're going to take a long time, and vegetarians made the Instant Pot a thing?
That's my feeling, but I might just be lying. Like, I, for some reason, thought it came from South Korea. Hello, it's Canadian.
Right.
The actual Instant Pot
yeah,
is from Canada. And there are many try, but, you know, many attempt, but few are as good as this. So I don't know. I'm where I am on this, and I'm not giving it up. So.
Oh, I'm not asking. And yet more evidence that the Canadians are superior to us in every way, isn't it? I mean, it was bad enough that they were morally superior to us, but if they're going to be superior, you know, with their cheap college education and their universal health care, but now it's advanced.
I'm not talking about government in any way, but I will say that South Park has really championed Canadians in a beautiful way.
They have. They have. But you're not a vegetarian, are you?
I am sometimes.
I think sometimes
not just
means
for a
the
meal,
answer is
but for
no.
periods. I don't cook with a lot of meat. And when I'm in India, I eat all Indian food. I do, but I'm vegetarian because everybody's vegetarian mostly, and it's not a crime. It's not a sacrosanct kind of religious thing for me. I just, I don't eat much meat, and when I do, I like it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but you will. So you'll do I'm told you can do pulled pork in an Instant Pot.
Exactly, delicious.
And you don't turn your nose up at that.
Not if I made it and it's delicious. If somebody else makes it, it's all dry and horrible, then I do turn my nose
yeah, fair
and
enough.
say like, delicious.
It is cooking a social thing?
Not right now.
No,
Although I have to tell you, I've been giving it, but I got an emergency call from one of my dancers saying like, "Oh, Mark, I must talk to you right away." It's like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" And I called, and this person said like, I want to make some Indian dinner for my boyfriend in the Instant Pot. And so I ended up like talking him through it, which I love because it wasn't bad news. And I cook for people. I used to have dinner parties somewhat frequently. It's a lot of work, but I love it. But then I also cook in large quantities because I freeze stuff and I take food into work. I make big batches of stuff and take people in. I don't bake because I'm not a scientist, but I cook and eat and share.
Yeah, the baking scientists. I remember that. I think physicists especially are known for their bread. I don't know why that is. The dancers at Nritagram, they eat together.
Yes.
Do you guys eat together? You and the company?
On the road.
Yeah.
On the road, there's the buffet in the green room, and then if it's a college town, there's the TGI Fridays that's open until 10:15, and it's the only place in town. And some people, there are different groups of us who meet up for dinner. Who meet for dinner, and I entertain quite a bit, a whole bunch of different friends. So.
Right. But that seems a way that the company in India is. That's one of the ways in which they're brought together. They prepare the food together. They cook together. They eat together.
Right.
You envy that?
Well, when I'm there, I cook, and there's a staff and stuff, and there are gardeners and people pluck the food, and part of living there, you participate in the communality of it. So the younger, newer women and students, frankly, do some of the prep work with the ammas who work in the kitchen, and serve more senior. It's a traditional society, so I, as a visiting guru who's old, I'm served first, me and the people who direct it, and then the music. It's like there's a code that I can't violate. It's not up to me to say, please don't touch my feet to show respect. It's embarrassing. That embarrassment is embarrassing to the people who are doing it. So it's like, okay, this is a little bit weird. And everyone gets their plates, serves, you are served, you sit on the floor. It's mostly, a roofed pavilion that's open to the elements because it's such fabulous weather there. And you eat, and then you take your bowl back, and you're responsible. People have different chores. It's an amazing thing, and I love cooking when I'm there. That's one reason I think they secretly like me to come. I make a big dinner for New Year's. They have a big New Year's party, and I cook for sometimes 50 people.
But if I understand, these things are very culturally specific, and you can't just transplant them here. You can't suddenly have your company cooking for you.
No, I don't have. In the old guru system in India, you would sometimes spend a year, making tea and giving the slippers to your teacher before you sang a note or did one step. It was a whole thing. And for good or bad, I think mostly good, people don't have the patience or the capacity to do that. You don't just drop your daughter at the doorstep and she becomes a fabulous temple dancer that no one watches or pays. It's like things have changed. And so, it's interesting. It's a difficult balance to find for people who grew up in the older way, just like it is for everybody. Every time you're old, looking back on what's young, you're somehow something has dimmed while something else was brightened. So that's what's happening in India all over. And Nritagram, as advanced and progressive it is in thought, the behavior is very, very traditional, and it's wonderful. You know, they have a big garden, they grow their own stuff. They used to make their own yogurt and stuff. They're cow, you know, it's like cows. I should finish that word. But
we were going to say cats, and it's a whole other
cats.
thing.
Yeah, they milk the cats.
Yeah, it's delicate,
delicious. But it's, you know, it's also completely modern. It's just that, you know, it's a little back to it's a little bit hippie, but it's also fully Indian in a way that I've never experienced anything like that. And I've been to India for decades and all over.
One more Instant Pot question before we take some questions from the audience.
Reminder. Yeah, okay.
Instant Pot. Endorsement deal? Is there an endorsement deal? Have they offered you a thing?
Not yet.
Oh man,
Not
somebody's
awful.
missing a bit. Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens tonight. I'm sure that will develop. Anyway.
Anyway, so you'll take some questions from the audience, yeah?
You want answers first? Yes. No.
Yeah, give the answers, yeah.
1685, the Dewey Decimal System, the Hanseatic Code.
Oh, this is just like the way I watch Jeopardy.
Yeah.
First you give the answers, then you hear the questions.
League, oops, yeah.
Is that Shiva behind you? That was one question.
Oh, on the refrigerator? Yeah, it is. It is. It's dark in there. Yes, it is.
I think people are betting on these answers. So.
Oh, really? And there's the Virgin Mary with her son right there. There's a lot of things.
Yeah. I'm an
equal opportunity blasphemer.
Were you always an atheist?
No. At first, I was like a very reluctant Presbyterian. I've never really figured out what Presbyterianism is. So that didn't work. And then I was an enthusiastic, like occultist / agnostic. And it's like, I didn't even know what gnostic meant. So anyway, no, that grew on me. But I never tried out, you know, I did a little bit of transcendental meditation with a boyfriend because I thought that would be good. And it's fine. You know, and I have, you know, I'm as Buddhist as anybody. And, you know, it's the philosophy thing I like better than the deity thing. So I have been an atheist for a very long time with a fascination with religion.
Oh, yeah. So, and it's certainly possible to seek a kind of transcendence in work without having any particular affection for any deity of any kind.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. What would your second person have been? You said
second person.
I think you said early on, well, it could have been a lot of people, and you went with Lou Harrison. Who might you have chosen if not Lou Harrison?
Oh, well,
two people.
I don't know. I didn't go that far. Jesus Christ is a good one, but I don't know much about. I don't know that much. You know, there's so many years missing in that story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a long story. An Instapot question.
Okay.
Unexpected and delicious thing you've used to make. What was there something unexpected that you put in the pot? I don't know what that means.
Let's see. Well, I don't know. There's unexpected I've pulled out of the pot. I don't know. I tried a Kerala recipe from Kerala in South India of the unlikely combination of bananas and sweet potatoes in a very strong curry with yogurt. And that was like, oh God, that's going to be the grossest melted sundae in the world. Delicious.
Yeah.
But also you can cook artichokes in 12 minutes. I'm sorry. It's just amazing. And I haven't really failed that much. I did some Sono Mansuri rice that just turned out like rocks mixed with glue. So I did something wrong. That was my problem. If the seal isn't sealed, you're sunk. So be sure to check that.
Always check your seal. That's good advice in every part of life, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially at my age.
Oh, yeah. A YouTube question. What are you having for dinner?
Tonight, I'm just having this infinite vegetable turkey-based soup and probably a couple of little miniature quesadillas because I had a cheese, spinach, onion omelet for lunch. So that's it for today. Just a light dinner.
A light dinner.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the strangest non-Instant Pot kitchen gadget you own?
I know exactly. Oh, I'm excited about this. I was looking for years for something called an egg topper, which most people know to snip the top of an
yeah.
egg, right?
Yeah.
And you do it, you hit it with you break it and peel it with a spoon. Or they're these stupid, like weird scissors that just are horrible. But there's this incredible device. Oh, I wish I had it with me, which is like a little dunce cap with a tube and a sliding thing. And I found it at, I think, I don't know, some kitchen shop at the Pike Place Market in Seattle, maybe. And it's like a little dome you put on the egg and you snap and it hits it like that and makes and scores a perfect circle at the top. So then you take that off, because I was going to make this super pretentious Thomas Keller recipe that has scrambled eggs and caviar in a beautiful eggshell. So it's delicious. And so I did that, and you do the soft boiled egg. It comes off like a little yarmulke of egg, and it's fabulous. It was like $70 or something. And I use it like once a month, but that's one of my few. And of course I have an oyster knife, and I have a bunch of things.
You do. Well, is there something in the precept that the greater the number of kitchen gadgets, the worse the chef? That I always thought there'd be a kind of brilliant Zen chef that you got a knife, you got a pan, that's it.
Right.
But
exactly.
if you have you disdain the bagel slicer. What's a bagel slicer? A knife is a bagel slicer. Need a bagel slicer.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And yet there's a heretical question here that says slow cooker versus Instapot. Can you explain the difference? Well, it's a desire to learn.
Oh boy, can I fix that. Hello, person who asked that question. It does both things. The Instant Pot, you can use it just to saute stuff, and you can use it for anything, including you can set it for all day as a slow cooker. If you want to teach yourself a lesson in slow cooking, absolutely, it's wonderful. And of course, the smells. I usually cook a strong bone broth for about 2 hours, so it gets really collagenous and fabulous. Is that a word? I don't know.
No, I think that one counts.
Okay.
And two more food-related. People love food-related questions. Are you drinking rosé?
At this moment?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm drinking Guigal Côte d'Iron Rosé, which is only like $15. Guigal, everything they make is great. I usually have a red wine. I usually have a Bordeaux, but this is this delicious and not expensive, lovely red rosé.
You speak about food with real enthusiasm, and you both here and in India, and so there's a question that once you do acknowledge that your dancers don't starve themselves in any sense, right? They eat.
What does that mean?
Well,
dancers
I think it
don't
means
eat. Of course, dancers eat.
Well, but there were, I guess, balanchine dancers in particular who were notoriously thin, and there was a great book called "Competing with a Sylph" about dancers who are undernourished and who are so thin that it undermined their performance.
Right.
Who seem
That's
fit and vigorous
criminal.
and healthy.
That's criminal. Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to be so goddamn strong to dance Giselle. And the whole thing is it's a study in the actual term hysteria. It only affects women. That she's crazy and she has this mad scene. It is so, you have to be so strong and so smart and so together to be able to do that, as well as anything else in the dancing department. So I think there was a real problem with, and I'm pretty sure it started with Balanchine, but the letters, whatever, where women dancers got a reputation for being anorexic or bulimic, and because it was perpetuated, and it is still, but much less. Sports medicine has helped move in. Women are doing it for themselves, and so it's not like, why you don't look like a dancer because you don't look like a tiny skinny ballet girl who is perfectly nourished and strong. Don't get that part wrong. Or there are different body types. Isn't that amazing? and there always have been. So I'm jumping down your throat about that just because that isn't what dance is. That's a stereotype of a particular branch of dancing. Like opera isn't over till the fat lady sings.
Right.
That's a slogan, and it's not entirely untrue, or it wouldn't be, a cliche. But it's the same idea. It's like, oh, right, you must be good at math because your parents are from Asia somewhere.
Right.
It's like, maybe you are, but that's not a guarantee. It's like, I'm gay, but I don't know every Broadway show tune.
Wait,
sadly,
because that was my next question. I had a series of Broadway show tunes to throw to you to see if you could sing them. I'm dismissing that question. Oh, sort of to put this one to bed. Is there going to be a Mark Morris Instapot cookbook?
First of all, please put the NT back at the end. Instant pot, not Instapot. Oh, I don't know. Probably.
Big fundraiser for the
Why
company.
not?
Why not indeed?
Yeah.
Good.
Save everybody time and effort. You can even make like vegan dog food if you need to in a instant pot.
Vegan dog food. I don't think we're going to get a better out than vegan dog food, which I think is, and we're going to get letters from PETA now, even for bringing this up.
I don't mean it's made of dog. I think it's made for dogs. That's what I meant. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
no,
dog.
I know. But imposing vegetarianism on a dog is a very controversial thing in both the dog and vegetarian worlds. Yeah, and your world too. I think maybe our work here is done with vegetarian dog food.
Never. I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Mark. And
Did you
thank
vote?
you, Colin.
Did you vote? Did you vote?
Yes, I can go get. I voted on Tuesday. I used the Dropbox.
I believe you. I was voted. Not only that, I was recognized in a mask and a beard. I was like, I said, oh, it was great. That made me gloat a little bit because it was proof that I had voted. So,
quite right. I almost wore my I voted early sticker, but it seemed show-offy, and I left it in the closet.
I almost wore my fuck Trump button, and I didn't.
Because it seemed show-offy, I know. Yeah. All right, well, one more week, and we're okay, I hope.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks, Colin. Over to you. What's next? The credits? Yeah, I think
credits.
So.